Good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing this morning? Yesterday, there was a much bigger swell. I feel people enjoyed themselves last night, yes? Based on, so the word that we had up here to get you started for today was what best summarizes your experience on day one at the CGLCC. I see fun, I see the word fin. I'm not sure what fin means entirely. Too much fun, perhaps. Inspiring, uplifting, enlightening, belonging, hopeful, which is awesome. Clearly inspiring is the winning one, so that's great to see. It was actually awesome. Allison, again, thanks to you and your team at Tourism Kingston for hosting us last night. That was absolutely awesome. We all greatly enjoyed it, so thank you, Allison. I made the mistake of going out after, and I know some of you did, to Daft, to the karaoke bar, which, again, I know karaoke is supposed to be for fun. It was horrible karaoke. And it was fun. It was great. But for those of you that weren't there, we did manage to get ElleJay on the list, and he sang. It was so good. And after that, I don't want to put anyone on the spot. Megan from Ontario Power Generation promised me at the event, and I think this is a great idea, so I'm gonna put it out here just so it starts to float. Daryl's gonna kill me, but I don't care. For the gala, we should have the CGLCC staff do the entertainment, because we got enough. Telling you, we have enough to make that happen, and Megan has promised to sponsor ElleJay's act. So we already got one sponsor. So wait and see. Perhaps that'll happen at the gala. I'm not sure. Now, speaking of staff, I think we have some of the staff here, maybe not all of the staff, but I just wanted to give a warm round of applause to all of the staff with the CGLCC. I think you maybe know and see them all. We realized that we probably should have put ourselves in particular T-shirts, but just a big thanks to Cass and Peter and ElleJay and Amber, of course Paige and Connor and Miguel, who's working the front desk, and of course Daryl, and so any of the staff members that you see, and Prue, of course, who was awesome up here yesterday. Just a big thank you to all of them. So just a couple of quick housekeeping notes before we get started. One, just a reminder that if you didn't check out of your hotel room and you are leaving today, that checkout is actually 11. For those of you who are going on the train, there are a couple of people who have still not picked up their return train ticket. Miguel has them at the reg desk if you want to pick those up. And I mentioned it earlier, for the early train, which is departing at 2:48, there will be a trolley here at 1:45. Because there is a lot of people on that train, they're also going to send the luggage van actually for that one. So you can go down at 1:45 to load on your luggage and get on the trolley, and it will leave at 2 o'clock to the train station. For those on the later train, please be downstairs for the trolley at 3:30, and because there's only a few on that one, they'll just be doing the trolley, or 17 on that one, and there won't be a luggage van. You can just bring your luggage right onto the trolley. That leaves at 3:30, or loading at 3:30 for a 3:45 departure. So again, the earlier train, please make sure you're on board by 2. The later train, make sure you're on board the trolley by 3:45. So they will take you there. And I think that's almost it. What I would like to do before we get to our opening keynote of the day is just acknowledge one of our sponsors, which is Accenture. So Ryan, roll that video, please.
Congratulations, CGLCC, on your 20th anniversary. My name is Cecily Brown. I am the North America Supplier Inclusion and Diversity Lead at Accenture. We are proud to be a corporate partner with CGLCC that works to create a thriving and inclusive Canadian economy. At Accenture, our award-winning Supplier Inclusion and Sustainability Program promotes the inclusion of people who may be excluded from the labor market for physical, social, or cultural reasons. The program scope includes minority, ethnic, and women-owned businesses, the LGBTIQ+ community, persons with disabilities, veterans, refugees, and people living away from economic centers. The program is in 22 countries in fiscal 2022, with additional countries to follow in the year ahead. CGLCC, Accenture looks forward to working with you in the years ahead. Congratulations again.
another one of our sponsors, which is RBC, and it is because of RBC that we have our first keynote for this morning. Well, actually, our only keynote for today, but she's going to be a good one. Are there Masterchef fans in the audience? Does anyone here watch Masterchef? Yeah, if you watch seasons 5 and 7, then you're going to know who I'm about to introduce. Born and raised in Montreal, Marissa Leon John's kitchen reflects the multicultural food haven she hails from. Her Caribbean heritage is the foundation of her passion and for honoring tradition, and you can taste this in every bite she prepares. She's a proud MasterChef Canada alumni, and she uses her voice and platform to provide more visibility for other young Black LGBTQ+ members of the culinary community. Here to share her story is Marissa.
Is it on? Yes. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Marissa. I'm a chef, and I'm so incredibly honored to be speaking with you today. It's mind-blowing to me. As I was driving here from Montreal this morning, I was going back and thinking, wow, I've been in the culinary industry for 5 years, only 5 years, and this opportunity is something that I would have never imagined. Now, to get to this place has been a very long road, and I want to tell you a little bit about that. Because while standing here today brings me so much pride and comes with so much pride, there was a really long period in my life where I wasn't as beaming, and I wasn't as sure of myself, and I didn't know who I was, where I fit in, what I wanted to be, and what message I wanted to share with the world. And here we go. So I come from 2 Caribbean parents. My parents immigrated to Canada from the islands, tiny islands of St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They came to Canada with huge dreams, like most immigrants do, of providing a better future for their families than what they were raised with. Now, my parents worked very hard. My mom is a nurse. She's been a nurse for over 40 years. My dad works in IT. They worked very hard to provide my brother and I every opportunity that we could have to succeed. Now, that comes with a lot. My parents wanted that suburban lifestyle. They didn't want to fit into any stereotypes. So they wanted to get into suburbia, put their kids in a good school, get them in all the sports and fun activities, and again, under the guise of, or with the intention of, giving us the best opportunities to shine our brightest. And they did that. And I am so, so grateful. We lived in a great neighborhood. I had a lot of friends, played a lot of sports, and was often the only person of color in my classroom, or on my basketball team, or at the swimming pool. These things, while I felt part of the community, I still felt different. And being a kid, not understanding why I felt different, because we're all doing the same things, we're all together, but somehow, there's something special about the swim cap I have to wear when I'm in the pool, or how come I'm the only one who can jump so high or can run so fast when we're at the track meets, I'm standing out, and not all of the attention was positive. Not really understanding why. But that's okay. Parents always said, we work hard, we do what we gotta do, and no matter what, people will always see the good in you. If you put good out, you'll get good back. So, keep doing my thing. I grew up wanting to be in the medical field. My mom was a nurse. I wanted to grow up to be in the hospital like my mom. As I got a little older, I realized I don't really want to do that at all, actually. I'm really good at sports. I want to be a basketball star. So let's pursue that dream. Went to great basketball camps. Got some fantastic scholarships. One I got going into my senior year of high school, to move 3 hours away from home by myself in a very small town outside of Quebec City to play the sport that I loved, thinking this is going to be a catapult to, college, maybe American university. We're going to go for it. A little scary, but we're going to do it. So little old me at 15, 16 years old, very skinny and lanky, and all I knew is I love basketball, I'm gonna play, we're gonna do it no matter what. I was moving into, like I said, a very small town where I was literally in a student body of 2,000 students. I was the only person of color. That was shocking. That was jarring. Growing up, it was normal to be a bit of a token, but we'd still see different shades of the rainbow, you know, as I looked through my classes and you know, just around town. But not in this town. I felt so alone. I really went inside myself, and this is senior year of high school. I'm 16. I'm also figuring out a little bit about my sexuality. I'm discovering who I am. Not sure how to express myself because I don't see anyone else like me around me. I don't have any friends that I can confide in without fear of judgment, without fear of being othered more than I already felt othered just being in that space. One weekend I had come home to see my parents, and I was really struggling. And in typical fashion, growing up in a Caribbean household, a lot of our biggest breakthroughs happen in arguments. So while in a really heated discussion with my mom, I said, maybe I'm gay. And my mom just kind of looked at me and said, what? As I was going through it, I wasn't sure what I was feeling. I wasn't sure who I could turn to, and it just came out. My mom wasn't thrilled, but she could see that I was struggling and I was suffering. And I'm learning, although I don't have kids, I am an auntie and godmother to many. I'm learning that when you see the person you love so innocent, struggling and suffering, it doesn't matter what they did, we want to take care of them. And my mom was able to do that. She comforted me. She was not okay with it, and she made that pretty clear, but she said she would love me anyway. Fast forward a few years, things got tense, things got a little tricky, but I always had a safe place to land at home. Now going into adulthood, now I'm coming into my own. I've gone to my first Pride Parade. Woo! I've gone to my first Pride Parade. I've made some new friends. I'm in college now. There are these queer clubs. There are a lot of different people I'm starting to see more people who look like me. I'm kind of getting a vibe, starting to feel comfortable, coming into my own. And now it's time to, join the workforce. So I apply I get my first entry-level job at, I think I was 19, working for the Bank of Montreal, data entry and filling envelopes during a very busy tax season. And I'm thinking, well, this is the real deal. I'm an adult now. Walking into the office, best dressed as I could be. And again, I step into this world that's very, very homogenous. And I stick out like a sore thumb. Nobody looks like me. Nobody dresses like me. Nobody acts like me. Nobody speaks like me. Very few people could relate to where I was coming from. So while I kind of knew how to manage that feeling, because it's a feeling that I've managed up until that point my whole life, I still pushed through. Worked really hard, got some great opportunities, met a lot of people, and through meeting more people, I realized there was like a pretty big queer community within my workplace. And I was like, okay, great. If I can't relate to everyone, but I've got a little group. And it's funny because we all stick together. We really do. They took me under their wing. They took me out. I went to my first, can I say strip club? First drag show, first strip club with my gay crew. And now again, starting to feel more comfortable. Comfortable to be in my own skin. Comfortable to, make that move if I saw somebody that I was interested in, and comfortable to share who I am with the people around me, no matter what. Because that was the thing. I'm accepted for my skills. I'm accepted for my athletic ability. I'm accepted for a lot of things, but I'm not sure if I'm accepted for being gay across the board just yet. So still kind of shrinking myself in order to fit in. Careers change. We figure this out. In the middle of this stage of my life, I went through maybe a quarter life crisis where I wasn't sure what I wanted to do anymore. I was not sure about the bank. I wasn't sure about pursuing my education. I was kind of lost in the shuffle, and I was missing some of that discipline and organization that I had playing team sports. So next best thing was to join the Army. Thinking back on it now, kind of a weird decision, but I went for it. I joined the Canadian Armed Reserves and went in as an infantry soldier. I said, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna go big or go home. Went for it, learned as much as I could, had a really great experience, but somehow still felt like I couldn't really be myself. I wonder why. Again, still hiding, kind of wearing a mask of, yes, I can do a lot of things, but I'm not being my true, authentic self. Got out of the Army. I stayed in for 5 years. I had a really great time. I learned a lot of things. I have a very particular set of skills that I won't share with any of you. Moved on to another corporate job where I fell in love with my work. I'm a very adaptable person. Again, I was a bit of a chameleon. And when I was younger, I thought that just made me so dynamic, so versatile, so this, so that. And now I realize I was just looking for a place to belong, just looking for a place where I could be me 100%. And I kept bouncing around from thing to thing until I found it. I thought I found it at this last workplace. Little did I know that it was just another step, another notch on the ladder. I was working for a music company in operations, managing teams of people who install incredible sound systems in like the biggest places you can imagine: stadiums, auditoriums, malls, restaurants, hospitals. Climbed up the ladder very quickly, was making an impact on a number of levels. Only female in management, only Black person in management, only queer person in management. So we had this like trifecta of diversity, and I was it, which is fun and also lonely. So I could be the poster child for the company. This is our diversity, equity, and inclusion. Look, all in one nice package. But then I was like, where's everybody else? I'm alone up here. But with age comes a little bit of wisdom and maturity, and I use that position to say, hey, why am I the only one here, guys? Year 1 was fun. Year 2, okay, what are we gonna do about it? Year 3, I'm kind of done with this. I wanna see some change, or, you know, I'm gonna start looking elsewhere. So it's happening again, that cycle of I'm in, I'm here, I'm valued to a certain degree, but I'm not reaching my full potential because I'm not being fully myself. While this is happening, a colleague of mine who is a reality TV junkie, obsessed with Masterchef Canada, decided that she wanted to apply. Knowing that I had kind of fumbled around in the kitchen a little bit and could put on a good spread when we had a potluck, she said, hey, I want to apply, but I don't want to do it alone. Would you apply with me? I hadn't watched the show, but I had an idea what it was about, and I said, sure, why not? So we both applied. We both auditioned. One of us made it onto Masterchef Canada. I'll let you guess who. And that is where things changed. I got a phone call 2 weeks after auditioning saying like, hey, we want you to be on this show. Are you still interested? I said, hell yeah, I'm still interested. I want to be on TV. Obviously. What I didn't realize was by saying yes to that, I was about to change my trajectory completely. We shot the season. It was amazing. It was and still is, it was the most diverse cast and season that they'd ever had. The first hijabi Muslim woman on the show. There were more gays than I could count. And I felt at home in this wild world of reality TV, food, cooking competition. I was surrounded by people who not only looked like me, but had a similar story. We could relate, we could chat. I could talk about my girlfriend. They could talk about their partners, and it was real. I felt at home, even though I was in the most, we were in a pressure cooker, figuratively, and we were in this pressure cooker. So filming was an experience. I had a blast. I had a ball. The 5th season of Masterchef Canada, if anyone watches it, if anyone who has watched it can think back, there were rarely moments where my face wasn't in a full grin, because every day I felt like a kid waking up on Christmas morning, walking into a death fire pit. But I was really happy to do it because I was surrounded by people who made me feel comfortable and I could be 110% myself. And then there was this other moment where the light switched and I realized that there were so many cameras looking at me. And I thought of when I was a kid watching TV. And I thought of, forget when I was a kid. What about right now when I watch TV? Have I ever seen anyone who looks like me, walks like me, dresses like me, talks like me, cooks like me? Have I ever seen anyone like that on TV before? No. I've seen bits and pieces in places. Like I found success in bits and pieces of places all over the place. But never that all-encompassing, that like, oh my gosh, wow, that aha moment of seeing somebody who represents you. And without realizing it, I was becoming that for someone else. For many people, I had no idea until like 8 months later when the season finally aired and folks were sliding into my DMs and emailing me and going in hard, telling me how much of a breath of fresh air it was to see someone who looked like them, someone that they could show their kids. I had countless queer families reach out to me saying like, hey, it's a family event. We watch MasterChef Canada to see you and your buddies, but mostly you, and our kids get to see someone who looks like them. And it hit me. Wow, what an impact. Thank goodness I had told myself before filming that I'm just gonna be me. I'm not gonna let them write my story. I'm not gonna let them edit me a certain way. I'm just gonna be me, and we'll see how that goes. It worked out pretty well. I got a really good edit. And the response was phenomenal. And I'd been feeding off of that, building off of that. And after we filmed the show, I said, there's no way I'm going back to that office. There's no way I'm going back to that desk job where I felt small and closed in. And while I was trying to, spread my wings, there were limits to how far I could spread them. Here, I had the opportunity to just, soar. So we did. We quit the job. After a few months of plotting and figuring out how I'm going to start a business and turn this experience on MasterChef into something, I started cooking and asking my friends, like, hey, are you doing a dinner party? Do you want a chef? I'll cook for you. Started like that. A little bit of buzz, word of mouth. People let me into their homes, started letting me into their homes. Then the show aired. More people heard about it. More people saw me. Everything was looking great. And more people are inviting me into their homes. And that's when I really started to realize, hey, we've got a real opportunity here. Because the people who can afford to have a private chef come in to their home and prepare a lavish meal for them, they're not expecting me to roll up. And I saw it on their faces because a lot of folks just contacted me through email or were referred to me by someone else, and maybe they never watched the show. Maybe they didn't know who I was, had never seen my face before I showed up at their house, and they're asking if I'm here to help serve or if I'm here to help clean up. And I'm like, actually, put on my apron, pull out my knives. I'm here to cook for you, and I guarantee you're gonna love it. And at the end of the night, of course, they do. And their eyes are open. Like, wow, this is not what we expected. And I've been doing that for the last 5 years, essentially going into homes and just shattering the misconceptions that they've had about what a chef looks like, who a chef could be walking in. Who's gonna serve me this fine dining experience? I expect it to look a certain way. You are not what I expected. Did I get catfished? No, you did not get catfished. I'm the real deal. Pandemic happened, COVID came, right in the middle of getting, like, really picking up steam. COVID was terrible. It was awful. I was just starting to feel comfortable and grounded in this new career that I had started. And all of a sudden, my going into people's homes was literally illegal and unsafe and really scary. So we pivoted and we did some takeout and delivery. But I got a phone call from the producers of Masterchef Canada saying, hey, we're doing an all-star season. Would you like to come back and do it again? And I said, hell yeah. We're going to do this one more time. And this time, I'm taking what I didn't know the first time. Forget the cooking part. That part we can do. But the idea of now 2 years later, 2 years after the first time, I am so much more confident. I'm so much more comfortable. I know who I am. I know what voice I have. And I know the impact that my voice can have. Oh, we're going all in this time. I showed up as gay as could be. I was serving them butch realness. I gave it to them so hard, and there was no turning back. There was no like, oh, wardrobe's coming in to see if we can. No. We got this, you know? And we went for it, and they loved it. I didn't really give them much choice, but they loved it. And again, sending that message that you can be who you are, hoping that it makes someone else see and be more comfortable so they might not be in the situations that I found myself in, coming up the ladder, bouncing from place to place. I'm happy to be talking to you guys today. I feel so comfortable with everybody here today. And the comfort that we feel in this room all being together is something that I wish and hope we can have, that everyone can have in every space that they're in. I know that we're so far from there. We're so very far from there, but we're making baby steps. And having these conversations and having more visibility and having more relatability, those connections that we think are missed because we're a little bit different from one another, that kind of hold us back and keep us small. Breaking those down so that when a young Black queer kid goes for a job interview, they don't have to have that ringing fear in the back of their heads saying, you've got strikes against you just from walking in the door. They're not going to see you for who you are just yet. I want kids and folks to walk into rooms and think, I'm going to nail this, and maybe they'll like me even more because I've got so much flair and panache, right? We're getting there. We are getting there. I hope that as we continue to build, it gets easier. We're meeting quite a bit of resistance these days, but I'm hopeful because I see that in just the 5 years that I've shifted into the culinary industry and had the opportunity to speak to rooms like this one, in a number of different spaces, corporate spaces now, this is another wonderful thing that I never would have imagined for myself is now I get to come in and share this story with tons more people so they can, you know, break down those barriers and keep shattering those glasses so that they can see like, oh, man, what I thought, that wasn't it. That wasn't it. And kind of look within themselves and see like, yes, there's still work to do. I need to, you know, take some of the blinders off that I put on myself. So that's it. That's my story. That's my journey. And what I want to share with everyone is whatever space you're in, whatever field you're in, whatever office you occupy, be mindful and check out the people who are working with you. There could be someone who is a little unsure, needs some help, needs a mentor, maybe just someone to have a coffee with, to let them know that they're seen and that they belong. Just like, you know, we all do. We all belong. And that's pretty much it. Thank you. Absolutely.
Does anybody have any questions for Marissa?
Over here.
Hi, this might be a little off topic. I'd love to know what your favorite knife is.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I don't have a favorite knife, but I can give you a recommendation for a fantastic workhorse knife that you can use like all the time, anytime. It's by Victorinox, and it is their signature like 6-inch chef's knife. Super affordable. It costs like 50 or 60 bucks. I have 3 of them. Okay, so maybe I do have a favorite. I have a lot of knives, but I have 3 of them, and I use them all the time. So there are the very expensive and fancy $500, $600, $1,000 knives. I'm good for the under 100 bucks. Yeah.
Someone at this side had a question over here. Yep.
I heard a rumor that you're competing for a favorite chef. Can you tell us about this, maybe?
Yeah, so I thought I'd retired from food competitions, but I recently entered in a favorite chef competition where there's a $25,000 prize and a 2-page advertorial in a food and wine magazine. So if anybody wants to vote, I can drop you guys the link.
One more question over here.
Hi, you did a great job of telling your story. You mentioned something at the end, and you said that you feel great that you can be an example for people showing up as they are, not walking into scenarios feeling like they already have stripes against them or things against them. I think we have maybe a very similar story in terms of being visible minorities. I think in our kind of community, our parents from a very young age let us know that like you have all of these boxes or things that are going to be going against you. So just your perspective, do you think it's better to not maybe teach children or let them know that there's going to be barriers that they're going to be facing, or to kind of maybe let them figure it out on their own? I just wanted to get your thoughts surrounding that.
I think that there is a certain level of preparation that everybody needs to have. What I think is really important is that everyone is having these conversations, because I'm sure you heard when you were growing up, I imagine you heard the work twice as hard to get half as much. Other people hear that too, but for them it's the opposite. It's literally like you can work half as hard and get twice as much. So it's flipping that script on both ends. But we definitely need to, there's empowerment in be you, be unapologetically yourself, because I don't want someone to buy into half of me. I want someone to buy into all of me. And if they're not going to buy into all of me, then I don't want it. So it's kind of like, be prepared. You may get a few more no's than you will get yeses based on unconscious bias and very conscious bias, but why would you want to work for that person anyway? Yeah.
Great question. Thank you. Any other questions over here? over here.
You are extraordinary. Oh my God.
Thank you.
I'm going to put you on the spot. You've talked about your past and who you are and where you are.
Yeah.
Share with us your deep dream, your deepest sense of purpose, your why. You're going to be around for the next 50, 60, 70 years.
Yeah.
What's next for you?
So I'll tell you what the big dream is. The big dream is to open my own restaurant and bed and breakfast on the paradise island of St. Lucia. That's the big dream. The meat and potatoes and the soul of it, though, is community. Because I want this bed and breakfast to be like, I want this restaurant, mini resort. We're not going to make it a resort. It's going to be intimate. A boutique hotel with a very beautiful fine dining restaurant to be like a queer hub. Like, so it is a known safe space for international travelers, for anybody coming through, and not only for the travelers who are going to spend all their money, but that is also safe enough for locals to come as well. So they know that they've got a spot where they can be themselves 100%, because right now, it is not okay to be gay there. It's very hush-hush. And I was recently in St. Lucia over the holidays doing a guest chef series at a very, very posh resort out there. And while I felt great on the resort, there were tons of queers and they were out and proud, even like the kitchen staff, tons of queers, even having conversations with them, because I walked into the kitchen and I was like, wow, I feel more at home here than I do at home. They said that in the kitchen, we're good, but outside of the kitchen, they're hiding. They're wearing their masks as well. So they don't even have the spaces where they can feel comfortable and just be themselves. And my dream really is to do that. In the short term, I'm on the cusp of launching my first line of spice blends. And my way of pushing the agenda is to call them fairy dust, because I'm just sprinkling a little bit of gay all over your food, all over your kitchen. So that's launching at the end of this month, and I hope you guys all buy some. But that's the short term, and it really is. Ultimately, every step, it's about building community. It's about creating more visibility, and having that representation, being that representation. So putting out my really gay spices, and eventually, hopefully, building a little gay haven in Paradise. Yeah.
Time for one more question. If anybody has other questions for Marissa? No? All right, we'll look out for your fairy dust.
Yes.
Thank you very much for joining us. We
Thank
greatly
you.
appreciate you coming from Montreal
Thank you
this
for
morning to
having
join
me.
us. Thank you. I do need to grab my notes for 1 second before we get to the next spot here. 1 second. So, thank you, Marissa. So, okay, we have our final session in this room, and we do have a workshop after this, but our final session in this room is going to be a bit of a presentation and a workshop together. It's going to be a little bit of a combo. And for those of you joining us virtually, you're going to be part of the presentation, and then Daryl will be jumping online to say goodbye and thank you and wrapping up the conference for the folks virtually who have joined us for the last day and a half. So thank you so much for tuning in. As I said, you will see part of this presentation, and then the workshop, we will move from the virtual just to the in-person crowd. So our workshop is all about putting ESG into action, and we have 3 folks coming up to talk and present and workshop with you. First of all, and I'll ask them to come up as I call your name, Michelle Albanese is a senior consultant that has over 20 years of experience working with governments, nonprofits, and private and publicly traded companies to enhance sustainability and ESG. Michelle, come on down. Josh Crawford is currently the VP of Sales and Marketing at Higginson Equipment in Burlington, Ontario. Josh, come on down. And Rachel Guthrie is the VP ESG Strategy, Outreach, and Reporting for Export Development Canada. And I'm going to turn it over to the 3 of you folks to handle the presentation and workshop for us today. Thank you. let me reintroduce. I got the wrong Josh on the panel. Good notes. Justin Taylor from Cardinals. Thank you. My apologies. You know what? This almost went perfectly seamless until the last session. Super. Thank you.
Turn it on and off?
No, you're on. You're good.
And I turn it off when I'm not talking?
No, it'll just stop.
Okay. Oh, sit? Okay. Good sit. I can't really sit. Okay. Yeah, I guess I'll sit, yeah.
I've got the clicker.
Oh, you have the clicker? Yeah. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? No. No? Seriously? Yes? Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to see such a large crowd here this morning. I heard there was some interesting pub nights last night, some karaoke going on, so I'm very happy to see such a big crowd. Welcome to our session. My name is Michelle Albanese, and today we're going to walk you through putting ESG into action, and we're going to try to demystify ESG a little bit for you today. So we can go to the next slide, and just what are the things we want you to get out of today's session? We want you to help you understand the term ESG. There's a bit of confusion out there about what it really means. And also we want to talk about materiality, material topics. And we want you to understand the key drivers to start assessing what is material to a business, as well as the importance of ESG and how it's really driving procurement decision making. And then also we're going to get you started on how to set your own ESG priorities. Okay, so this is a very busy slide, and don't worry, I know it's hard to see probably some of the font from the back of the room especially, but we will walk you through what this really means. So what is ESG? So how many people in the room have heard the term ESG before? Put up your hand. It's a newer term, I will say for sure, and it's being driven through the capital markets. It's really kind of like an evolution of sustainability, and I'll explain what it really means. So ESG stands for environmental, social, governance, and as you can see, there's a lot of factors here that are listed underneath each of the three pillars. So ESG, these factors actually, what they do is they present risks and opportunities that can have a financial material impact on a company. That's really how ESG slightly differentiates from sustainability. These factors can have a financial material impact on a company. And that's why they're so important in the capital markets world. That's why they're so important to investors or other stakeholders. So if you look under E, for example, you'll see climate change is listed there, waste, biodiversity loss, circular economy. Those are the types of E topics. S topics include human rights and labor rights, modern slavery, human trafficking, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and also responsible sourcing practices and supplier diversity. And then governance, some would argue governance is the most important of the three pillars because governance is really corporate oversight, board oversight, risk management. You also have got in there, you've got data security and privacy, but it's really, without governance, you're really not going to manage those E&S risk factors properly. So that's why people would argue governance is the most important of the three. But anyway, they're all important. I just want to just describe what they mean. So really for you in the room, if you're a corporate or if you're an entrepreneur or you have your own business, the questions that you want to ask of all these ESG topics, which are the most significant to your company? The second thing you want to think about is, are you meeting stakeholder expectations on these topics? And the third is, can you measure progress on these topics? So there's a lot of factors listed here. Not every company is going to find every single factor material to them, and you're not going to be able to manage, not every company is going to have all of these factors the highest on their priority list for how they're going to manage them. So it depends on the industry you're in, it depends on your type of company, size of company.
But I would say that if you look at these as they can be risks, ESG risks, or ESG opportunities to your company. And I'll just give one really quick example, and this is like an industrial example, but in the cement industry, okay, cement manufacturers are having a lot of carbon taxes put on them. Okay, so because they're a high emitting industry, they emit a lot of carbon emissions to manufacture cement. So that's a huge risk to a cement manufacturer. But when you think about the flip side, the opportunity, right now, what's happening is, especially in construction and development, architects and builders are looking for low carbon products. So they're actually manufacturing cement, low carbon cement, right? So, and that's called actually the carbon emissions before a building is built or during construction is called embodied carbon. And it's a really, really hot topic right now. How do we get more building materials like cement that are low carbon? So that's just an example of where something can be a complete risk to a company, but to the cement manufacturer, if they can produce low carbon cement, that's a tremendous market share increase that they could find, and they can get more, more revenue from getting more customers who are looking for that type of product. So let's go to the next slide, which is really how do you know what's material to you, and what does materiality mean? And it's again it's really just focusing on what's most important to your business. And you have to really self-evaluate and say, what is going to drive that risk or opportunity that's material to my business? And then what are your stakeholders saying about your business too? It's really important when you do a materiality assessment, when you think about what's material, is to ask your stakeholders or find out what's important to your stakeholders. And I'll get to that in a minute. But I just wanted to mention that what happens is, what the evidence shows is that any company that can manage its ESG risk or look for those opportunities will financially outperform other companies. And there's a lot of data to back that up. If we go to the next slide and talk about who is a stakeholder. So again, if you want to do a materiality assessment or really think about what's material to your company, you need to engage your stakeholders. And that's anyone who could be affected by your products or services or operations. So commonly, if your customers, your employees, investors, the banks that are lending to you, your suppliers, those are all key stakeholders that you can engage in a conversation. Now, if you're a small business, you don't need to do this huge materiality assessment that a large corporation might do, right? Large corporations, they will do a materiality assessment, takes several months. They engage a lot of stakeholders. If you're a smaller company, you just scale it down. You just talk to your customers, find out what's important to them. We can do one-on-one interviews, you could do surveys, or just go on their websites for some of your customers and see what's important to them. And we'll talk about why that is important as well in a minute. But anyway, so engaging stakeholders doesn't have to be a huge onerous process. Just talk to your customers, talk to your employees, and see what's important to them. And that'll help you prioritize what you need to focus on as well. Okay, I think I'm handing it over to Rachel now to talk about some interesting survey results.
Good morning, everyone. Just doing a sound check. Thumbs up. Great. So my name is Rachel Guthrie. I'm a VP of ESG at Export Development Canada. If you don't know who Export Development Canada is, because I didn't before I started working for them, they are a crown corporation who help businesses export their goods overseas, so international trade. We have Jen in the crowd. We have Matt, stand up. So if you're interested in expanding international markets, he's the guy to speak to. So we did a survey recently. These results are hot off the press. Even my boss hasn't seen them. We did a survey. We wanted to see, what is the landscape of ESG across Canada? How many businesses are seeing this as important to how they do business? It was a topic that only geeks like us had heard about, honestly, 5 years ago. And then suddenly it just went kaboom, right? And everything in the papers is about ESG. So, if you're a small, medium company, an entrepreneur, how do you wrap your head around what is this? What do I need to do? Lots of numbers on this slide we can share afterwards. But basically what you see here is now 7 out of 10 companies are seeing ESG having impact and being integrated into their business decisions. So this survey is about 350 small, medium companies across Canada, coast to coast. And this is the second year that we've done this survey. And even within that year, these numbers are increasing. So it's really starting to hit the radar. So you see that first one, the jump from 41 to 53, I think. My company is integrating ESG into our strategy. So just understanding where the impacts are to your business. What you see is companies who are ignoring this being surprised in a bad way, right? So it's easier to understand, like, how do I get ahead of some of these risks and opportunities? How do I make this into business value rather than business risk? So we're also seeing, like, the biggest complaint we get about ESG, like you start talking about, you know, you need to do this to improve your environmental performance, or you need to do this to improve your talent. It's too costly. And even in this survey, we're starting to see that pendulum swing to opportunity. So 31% see it, ESG as mainly a cost, 68% see it as an opportunity. So even when you're thinking about employees, what do they expect, right? They expect a company to know their values. They don't want to have to drop their values at the door when they do their day job, right? So even seeing ESG as a talent attraction and a retention tool is pretty critical. We also saw more businesses understanding the need to be able to talk ESG to their stakeholders. So, you know, investors are asking about it, suppliers are asking about it. So even having those internal conversations about, you know, what is our position on some of these topics? Like, what are we know we can't do everything, so what are we going to try and focus on and measure our progress on? And this, for me, this was the most interesting result. So we wanted to know where in your business activities, where is that the most important intersection of ESG and your business? And out of all the different facets of running a company, supply chain. So this is partly where we see compliance, regulation, and even your competitiveness as LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs. Like, there's a competitive advantage to understanding your place in the supply chain and telling that story. So there's many different issues. ESG is a complex area. And Michelle talked about, you know, don't focus on a lot. Pick the 2 or 3 topics that are most critical to your business. ESG is a bit of an iceberg. Like, there's so much of the performance that, frankly, is really tricky to measure. But we need to understand how this can impact. So you remember Rana Plaza, Joe Fresh, happened a number of years ago. You know, these issues can have the potential to come up from the surface and really, like, impact your brand, turn your business model upside down. That was an issue all about working conditions and human rights in the supply chain, and it caught Joe Fresh by surprise. So what you see on the right-hand side, this is the materiality assessment, where you take all of those buckets of issues and you listen to your stakeholders and you say, for our company at this time, what are the most important ESG topics that we need to be thinking about in our decision-making process? I'll hand it over to Justin.
So when we're talking ESG, it's really taking a different approach than some of the traditional, more PR approaches to maybe trying to spin a good story about your company. It's really taking a disciplined approach to these issues. We talked a little bit about identifying what's material and relevant to your business, and that's the first place to start. And you can be as detailed in this assessment by hiring expensive consultants. A couple of us are on the panel here. Or what I recommend doing is taking a look at your key customers, doing a Control F, in their sustainability report and see what they're talking about their expectations are in the supply chain. It really needs to be linked to your strategy as well. If you conceptualize ESG as something that's over here and the core part of our business is over there, you're never going to succeed and you're going to continuously be playing catch up. But if you start to consider ESG as part of your core strategy, so how are we integrating how we treat the environment and people into our business strategy going forward, that's where you can really identify the opportunities and not only be at the mercy of the risks. Oops. I'm the one controlling and I'm the one that's screwed up. That Josh guy, I think, is what I'm
Yeah, Josh did it. Josh did it.
The next element is really clear policy and clear targets. Once you've identified what's really important to your business and what you're going after as part of your strategy for ESG, set yourself clear targets for what you want to achieve. Set stretch benchmarks that show your stakeholders that you're really trying to be a strong performer and trying to do better, and set clear policies that you can share with stakeholders. I've worked with many small businesses over the last couple of years who say, you know, we're a values-driven organization. We don't believe in policies. We don't believe in this. And you know, I do an initial consultation with them. All of them have come back to me and said, Justin, remember how you said we're going to need some policies around this? Can you help us draft these? So be ready to have clear policies for your business and be able to share those with your stakeholders. And that brings us to the last point, transparency. Be transparent in what your objectives are and what your progress is. Working with larger businesses, they would much rather know that you're aware of your environmental and social risks and opportunities and are actively measuring to make progress instead of trying to greenwash and pretend that you're doing a good job without actually measuring and being transparent about your progress. For a small business, there's a number of factors that are really affecting your ESG strategy. The first thing to really consider is, as a business, what is your purpose and what are your values? Who are you and who do you want to be? Who do you want your stakeholders to know you as? The next thing is always very important. What are your customers' expectations of you? And like I said, the sustainability report and Control F, I'm sharing my trade secrets with you, but that is the #1 thing to do. A quick scan of your top customers' sustainability reports will give you a good sense of what they expect of you. Supply chain. Sometimes people look at supply chain as an obligation to manage. So you are responsible for the choices you make in procurement. And we talk a lot about supplier diversity here, so that's an element. Lots of larger companies are saying, we want to be accountable in our supply chain and open the door for LGBTQ2+ owned businesses. But that's just opening the door. You really need to be ready to meet those requirements. Also, some suppliers are in a position of power and are choosing to only supply to companies that meet their ESG requirements. I've worked with a couple of companies that are in a line of business where supply is very tight, and they've actually had to work with their suppliers to convince their suppliers that they have strong enough ESG performance to be chosen as a preferred buyer. Regulations and taxes are coming. Pierre Poliev will, I'm sure, as we're presenting this presentation, has done 3 or 4 press releases about carbon taxes. They're going to continue to come, and regulations are coming. So it's much better to understand what's going on in your business than to be reacting to regulations and taxes as they become imposed. Your financial partners are going to be required to ask you about your sustainability performance. In last year's budget, banks will be required by 2025 to start gathering information on the carbon emissions of their customers. So this is coming. Whether you want to resist it or not, it's going to be affecting your business. And last but not least, workforce. We've talked so much over the last couple of years about the quiet exodus, the changes, the monumental changes in the workforce, and Gen Z entering the workforce with its own set of expectations. So take the time to understand what your workforce's expectations are of an employer and integrate that into your ESG strategy. Michelle's going to talk a little bit about why this is really important for suppliers.
Yeah, so I think we've covered a little bit of this, so I don't want to spend too much time, but I just want to show you that there's been a huge shift in terms of like disclosures from companies and which companies are required to disclose. So when you think about why companies are addressing these risks and opportunities, a lot of it has come from regulatory regulations, and that's really driven a lot of companies to have to act and disclose. But but those are increasing so significantly lately. I mean, in this year alone, any publicly traded company on the Toronto Stock Exchange or in the U.S. stock exchanges are having to disclose climate-related disclosures on how they're measuring and reducing carbon emissions. So we're seeing this huge push from the regulatory aspect. There's a new bill that just came out, if you're not aware, called Bill S211, which certain size companies with certain revenue amounts have to disclose on what they're doing for child labor and forced labor in Canada. This is a brand new bill. So that's come into effect. So the regulatory landscape has always made a push for larger and bigger companies and publicly traded companies to disclose. But what we're seeing now, and this is the middle part of the slide, is Josh or Justin? What's your name? Josh? Justin? Just teasing. Anyway, I'm just teasing. So anyway, what we're seeing now is a complete shift, not just from publicly traded companies that have to report or large companies, but we're seeing requests coming to small businesses. So it could be these businesses in this room. You may be getting more requests from customers. It's happening. And so through an RFP, they might be asking you, what are you doing to reduce your carbon emissions? And your size of your company is irrelevant now because we all have an impact, even as individuals. You may be getting a request from an investor or their formal shareholder proposals as well, but even somebody who's investing in you, or your company, and bank loans. There's KPIs attached to bank loans around this, but also rating agencies. And rating agencies, if you've ever heard of the ISS as an example, or MSCI, they rate companies, they would rate you on your performance in terms of ESG and sustainability, but these rating agencies typically only rate publicly traded companies, but EcoVadis is listed up there, and they're actually a third-party rating agency that asks private companies, who we don't have any information on because they don't typically disclose. They ask private companies about, do you have an environmental policy? Do you have a diversity and inclusion policy? So companies in this room, you may be asked through a customer using EcoVadis to answer questions, and it's quite onerous. So the point is to be prepared and to get this stuff and be proactive, which is the third slide there, or the third pillar there, which is it's just good for business, and we've talked about this already. But I guess what I wanted to say here is that it's not just large publicly traded companies that are getting pressure on them. It's small to medium-sized enterprises, privately owned companies that are also seeing these requests coming from all different angles. Back to you.
And I put this slide in for the 40-plus crowd. Let's hear it for those who are around for Reaganomics. Trickle-down economics was a thing when I was a kid. Trickle-down ESG is a thing that SMEs are going to see. And like I mentioned, the large companies are seeing, a lot of this regulation really only applies to large companies or publicly traded companies. They are the ones with shareholders that have ESG demands. They're the one who have institutional investors that are making these demands. This is all being put on the large companies. But guess what? This is also being imposed through their supply chain requirements on SMEs. So there's either reporting requirements so that you can provide the data that the large companies need to be able to report out on their commitments. There's also procurement criteria that is changing really, really quickly. And I've had a couple of good conversations with David over there in the back of the room about trying to diversify a supply chain, but having your suppliers understand the full breadth of the ESG requirements to qualify as a supplier. So this is coming. It's not something we can ignore. And just to give you an example, Nike has 29 commitments in its sustainability reports, 29 objectives. 10 of those 29 are directly related to their decisions in their supply chain. So for a lot of large companies, most of their commitments involve activity in the supply chains, which is going to affect all businesses. So this wraps up the presentation portion. We moved the tools and resources up to now because now is the time that we'll walk through these tools and resources and then say goodbye to the folks who are joining us online. But we did want to make sure to share these tools now. So there's a couple of awesome resources. BDC has an excellent microsite on their website, BDC Climate Action Center. I always direct small companies to go to the UN Global Compact. There's a ton of free training, free tools that are on there. The SME Climate Hub is also an excellent resource. So there's a ton of resources out there that can help you walk through your plans to develop an ESG strategy. If you're looking for support with governance, there are tools for the SME Governance Assessment Tool, and the Government of Canada has a Business Benefits Finder. So these tools are all available, and many of them can help you get started quite quickly.
Justin, can I just mention one thing? On the SME Climate Hub, there's a free carbon calculator tool. So if you have a small business, you can go on there and enter in, it's a lot of it's spend-based, but you can calculate your carbon emissions as a company, and you may need that to report to your customers.
So these are some great tools. And with that, we'll wrap up the online portion of this presentation and break out into our breakout discussion for today. The timeline up there is a little bit wrong. We had some of the times wrong, so please ignore that. But what we're going to do is we're going to have you gather together in tables. If you're sitting alone with 1 or 2 people, there's a couple of tables with 3 or 4, so huddle up, and we're going to go over 2 questions. The first question is really going to be asking from the perspective of corporate buyers. What are your most important needs from your suppliers to meet your own ESG priorities and commitments? After a few minutes focused on that topic, we'll switch to, from a supplier's perspective, what are your biggest challenges in meeting your customers' ESG needs and expectations? And then we'll come back for a little bit of a discussion about what we discovered. So with that, please huddle up, and the 3 of us will be circulating to help you out with your discussions.
For those of you joining us virtually today, this does unfortunately mark the end of our 10th annual Global Business Summit. I'm so thankful for you joining us over the past couple days. Events like this are important as we continue to work together to create a more inclusive Canadian economy. I want to again thank all of our sponsors that made this summit possible. Our title sponsor, TD Bank Group, Accenture, Air Canada, BDC, BMO, EDC, EY, RBC, Scotiabank, Sun Life, Versatil, Via Rail, our global affiliates, East Meets West and Oak Britain, and our bronze friends and supporting sponsors. Thank you all. I also want to give a huge thank you to the entire CGLCC team who worked tirelessly to make this event possible. Coming out of Minister Ng's announcement yesterday on the launch of the federal 2SLGBTQI entrepreneurship program, there's going to be some exciting things happening over the coming weeks and months. So I encourage each of you to stay connected with us and to continue to be engaged in the work that we're doing to support Canada's 2SLGBT business community. Thank you, and have a safe and happy Pride.